Some 30 years ago, it used to be known as vucompra in Italy. This was a hawking begging business among the Senegalese communities. Those, on the other hand, who had nothing to sell invented a kind of car parking space renting business, where these self-employed rose up early in the morning to various identified car parks in the city to direct and find space for people looking for parking. All knew that it was an undercover, quote, begging business, unquote, within the Senegalese community. Then, in the early 90s, a new business rose among the Nigerian community, which was known as buongiorno or fazzoletti. As the name implies, buongiorno in Italian is good morning and fazzoletti means handkerchief. These names were symbolic of the kind of business many of the young and old Nigerians who were either without the legal staying permit or who were out of job had adopted. They moved from house to house like hawkers, but the real business was, quote, begging, unquote. And though they had chosen a humble vocation, these men were respected because they had shunned vices and chosen what they deemed as virtue. This went on until recently, when the fazzoletti business seemed to have given way to what is now known as shoro, where many of these precious people boldly beg for alms in front of supermarkets and on the streets. From what I was told, shoro means begging or to beg. This is the new and flourishing business among many Nigerians, regardless of their age, gender, and educational background. In my special interview with a very precious woman whom I had met while she was begging in front of the Brescia train station, she willingly and proudly told me that she would rather choose to beg than steal. This is what I have been hearing from many of the people who shoro. Many of these are refugees who are unable to work with their permit of stay, and others are people who have lost their job and thus are unable to renew their staying permit. My feeling of uneasiness and pain to see the seed of a rich country like Nigeria begging on the streets of Europe could not be soothed by any, and I refused to publish the story until I met Mr. Frank Okyere. Born in 1969, Mr. Frank Okyere is a native of Kyeraa in the Brong-Ahafo region of Ghana, but lived and was bred in Sunyani till his departure from Ghana at the age of 19. Mr. Okyere moved from nation to nation looking for greener pastures. He proudly boasts of having lived in almost every Arab country and every European country on the face of the earth. I met with Mr. Frank on a very beautiful Thursday afternoon at the car park at one of the hospitals in the city of Brescia. This place was referred to as the territory of some young Nigerian beggars, but when I neared Mr. Frank to ask for the whereabouts of the boys, he irritantly replied that, quote, those boys had stolen my space and now I have taken it back. This parking lot is my business ground, unquote. Well, I could not believe what I was hearing. A Ghanaian healthy man telling me that he also is in the shoro business? Yes, was the reply I got. Mr. Frank, like all the others, told me of how he would prefer begging to stealing. But since he is the first Ghanaian man I am seeing begging on the streets of Italy, because begging was the business of gypsies, and since he is the first to have broken the taboo and the pride of Ghanaians in Italy, I respectfully desire to know who is really Mr. Frank Okyere. Mr. Okyere arrived at Naples in the southern part of Italy in 1996. He worked and lived there for just 8 months before he moved to the north, precisely Brescia. Quote, I worked at a piccolo azienda, that is a small factory, until I found a better job at Castagnato, Brescia, where I worked from 1998 to 1999, unquote, Mr. Okyere said. Mr. Okyere says he then moved on to work at the MBE factory in a small town of Ome, Brescia, for 9 good years. Then, from 2010 to 2011, he left there to work with the mega SPA Medigini factory until employees were downsized and he was laid off. Mr. Frank has been unemployed for almost 2 years, but he proudly says that it is this, quote, undercover begging business that has kept me. The space that I have granted is not enough to share with you all the painful stories Mr. Okyere shared with me. Mr. Okyere said, quote, after I lost my job, my wife, with whom I have lived for all these 20 years, left me for an Italian man and managed to lure the social services to take my 2 children away from me, unquote. Asked if he ever has had any problems with the municipal police because begging, which is cantonaggio in Italy, is a crime, and about feeling shameful in begging at the hospital's parking lot and at a place so close to his house, Mr. Okyere said, quote, no, of course not. These people do not regard me as a beggar because I have never asked any for a penny, unquote. Quote, I'm there to work for the city's municipality for free by directing cars into their rightful parkings, unquote. Quote, they all know that I have been a good worker for all these past 20 years, and this is why they all feel compassion and are moved to give me something for the little that I'm doing, unquote. When I asked Mr. Frank if he would wish to return to Ghana, he snorted. Quote, what has Ghana got to offer me? Unquote. Quote, I am ready. I'm not ready not to go home and live like a beggar, unquote. Akosia Edu for the Ghana Ely News Network.
Quanto veramente ci vediamo dopo? Tu no, dopo vai a non mi fai niente, non mi fai niente.